Hi guys, welcome in. Happy Thursday. I just remembered that yesterday was April Fool's, and I remembered it literally right before I popped on, so I didn't have time to look up the origin to that. Did any of you guys partake in April Fool's? And if so, tell me where it originated. I hope you're having a fantastic day. Today we are going to talk about several subjects, but one thing that came up for me was a theory on the Nephilim, and if any of you guys have more information about it, please let me know. Before we get going, I'm going to set some energetic space. So I'll just burn some Palo Santo to cleanse and clear the energy. If you at any point want to receive some cleansing and clearing and partake in the prayer, just let your spirit and yourself know that you're willing to receive the energy and whatever serves you, filtering out what doesn't resonate, right? Okay. So first I'm just going to acknowledge Spirit, Creator, Source of all eternal life. Thank you, Spirit, and my ancestors, all of y'all's ancestors, if you're willing to acknowledge. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for your omnipotence, your guardianship, your protection, your love, your support. Thank you for always assisting and supporting us to find the right path, even if we don't choose it, Spirit. Thank you for helping us to up-level our intuition. And even when we ignore it or fail to heed warning, please continue to always offer it our way. Thank you to all guides. And I ask, Spirit, that you assist me to tune into my heart space and the consciousness to magnetize in a elevated community that is heart aligned, emotionally intelligent, conscious, and happy to connect through altruism and kindness. I ask to send out love and support to everybody who tunes in to this live at any point and the existence of the energy. And thank you, Spirit, for bestowing upon all of us your love and your protection. Thank you for your messages, your synchronicities. We are so grateful for all that you offer us and everything that we have not a clue that you are constantly doing in the background. Please continue to protect us, support us, filtering out any negativity, any distortions, delusions, helping us to connect heart to heart and call in the highest divine will that we align with and desire. As above, so below, and so it is, thy will be done. Okay, so first, I'm popping on, and how many of you guys have these experiences? I go to turn on the YouTube live, and suddenly my camera is blocked, right? And then I go to turn on the TikTok live, and my phone is rebooting, which it's done twice in a row. And so just a note on sabotage energies. If you guys have had the experience where, regardless of all your clearing work and your best efforts and tons of energy that you put into play and you're efforting to support yourself and you're giving it your all and you're constantly experiencing blocks to an extent where you know it's above and beyond, like the astrology, if that's something that you resonate with, or even like a self-sabotage, and you recognize that there's other energies in the field working actively to block your frequency, and or maybe you're experiencing familiar spirits or monitoring spirits. If this is something that has bothered you or gotten under your skin, or it's frustrating, or maybe sometimes it's even scary, right? If we're feeling the presence of other energies or entities or beings around us, then I'm going to invite you, first of all, to reframe the way you experience it and possibly look at it as validation that you're doing something right. Because if someone is willing to invest enough energy your way in order to create some kind of energetic schism or challenge in the field, then there is something that is triggering them about your light, which means you are doing something right, in my opinion. And you can work to immediately at least neutralize the frequency by finding some peace and humor around it. And I say this coming from a place that has consistently experienced not only everything Mercury retrograde, and my friends and my clients know this about me. I mean, if there's something like techie that can go wrong, it will go wrong. If there's some kind of like glitch in the matrix or Zoom's got to cut out or whatever, it happens, right? And it happens so much and it's so obvious at specific moments and in specific ways that it's just like humorous at this point. So if it's something that you have been experiencing, or maybe you're experiencing a bunch of monitoring spirits, and one way that you can recognize energetic monitoring spirits in the field is if there's sudden flies that pop up around you. Flies are representational of monitoring spirits, especially when they come out of nowhere. But it can also happen in a lot of ways, you know, people just kind of being energetically invasive, or you feeling pressed in some way, or even just a sense of like something or someone's watching me, right? These monitoring spirits, you can just validate that there's something about your energy that's magnetic and they want a part of it because they cannot create it on their own. And I invite you to just humor and neutralize the energy so you don't catalyze it into the future to loop, right? Because there are moments where we anchor in specific loop cycles and we have diversions in our karma. And it all depends on the energy you put or don't put towards something. And we've talked about this before, right? Where our primordial brain is programmed to focus more on a threat than the positive. And that served us at a certain point in our evolution where certain threats were life endangering. Though at this point, we want to retrain our brains and our nervous systems to ignore or at least neutralize any perceived annoyances or threats, right? Anything like that. If you're experiencing trolls, if you're experiencing haterade, if whatever it is, by ignoring it and neutralizing it or sending it love, whatever's authentic for you, because that's the key. You can work to dissolve a potential karmic loop. And I'd really invite you to explore that, especially if you're holding on to any kind of grudge, right, or resentments or negativity that's just chewing on your mind and your thoughts around situations and people. It's very, very important to work in some way to find a neutrality so you don't proliferate that into the future. And by doing that work and finding a space where you're completely neutral and objective and detached, not in an apathetic way, but just in a genuine way, right? That's when you can be sure that it has nothing to do with you. That's other people's projections, other energies, the matrix, just the program of what it's meant to do, what have you. Though when you invest into it, that's when it has to do with you. And it's all about your frame. So, you know, at this point, I just find it humorous when it's so blatantly obvious that there's some kind of efforting block in the field. And it just happens, so I wanted to touch on it. Now, another thing that I wanted to share with you, I forgot to share this with you guys yesterday, is I was praying to Spirit 2 days ago, asking for assistance and support. Spirit, show me the way. Show me what it is I need to know about this certain situation in my life. Please help me, Spirit. Show up, come through, give me the guidance, okay? And then the next day, or it could have even been later that day, I go to the gym and I come out and it's evening time and I'm just sitting in my car pondering some things, thinking about like, what do I want to do next? And I look on the hood of my car from inside and I notice these caterpillars crawling around the hood. I'm like, oh no, I don't want to drive off and kill these caterpillars. So I get out and come around the front of the car and I realize there's like dozens of these little guys crawling all around. So then there I am in the parking lot, just like picking off all these caterpillars. And the more I crouch down and pick up, the more I see. and they're like in the grill of the vehicle, and then I see them on the hood of the vehicle, and then they're on my passenger door, and I stoop down to get them off the passenger door, and then they're all in the wheel well. And so I'm like, I spend like a good 15 solid minutes pulling off, you guys, like 40 to 50 of these little guys. And that's a bit much. Like one caterpillar, it's probably going to initiate me to look up animal symbolism, because I really love animal symbolism. I resonate with it, and I am very open to it. So I find that spirit and nature brings me messages a lot through animal symbolism, which is a really fun thing. So if that's something that you enjoy or would like to experience, be very open to that, because the more you receive the guidance and symbolism through those types of sources, the more they show up in really amazing ways, like uncanny experiences with certain animals or bugs or what have you that should not be in that environment. Like, it's not a normal thing. So anyway, I'm like, okay, this is hilarious at this point. There's like 40 plus caterpillars crawling all over my car. So I get back in the car, I pull out, I'm like, let's get away from this tree so I don't have to deal with more of these guys and feel karmically, responsible for their death being smushed under my wheels. And the main thing that jumped out at me with the caterpillar symbolism was like patience. And it completely aligned with what I was asking Spirit for the guidance. And that's just such a fun way to receive validation and messages and hope and clarity through intuition. So it's something that I invite you to open yourself up to, because it can be really fun when you're having those experiences. Now, the title of today's talk is The Nephilim and Golden Blood. And I spoke about the blood types a few lives ago. And the rarest blood type in the world is RH null, also known as golden blood. And to my knowledge, hey Douglas Stein. Douglas Stein says 15-minute delay may have saved your life. Yeah, I didn't think of it that way, but it's true, right? Where sometimes you have a divine pause put in your path and you never know why. Douglas Stein, that just made me think of one of the most, when I was younger, I had this experience. When I was 17 years old, I moved from Texas to Florida. And one of my besties came and visited me at a certain point, and it's like midnight or 1 a.m. and we're just driving around. We're cruising the A1A, just exploring, totally sober, not doing anything bad, and we're chatting. And I'm driving, she's in the passenger seat. And as we're talking, I'm pulling up to a green light, and I notice that as I'm driving, and we're not going fast, like 40, 45 miles an hour, the crossroad, the road that is perpendicular to us, there's a truck that's going pretty fast coming through. He would be obviously approaching a red light because I've got a green. And we're talking, and this truck goes behind like a billboard or a sign. And then we go through the light, and we get a few seconds on the other side of this light. And I pause and I ask my friend, I'm like, hey, did you see that truck? She said, yeah. I said, where did it go? Because it never came out the other side of that billboard, and it had a red light and it wasn't slowing down. And that absolutely would have smashed into her, right? Into the passenger. And her and I were both I was very spiritual. She was very religious. And I just got crazy goosebumps, because without a doubt, I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that that was a miracle moment where our guardian angels or what have you saved our lives, right? You just reminded me of that, right? You never know why some minor inconvenience, right, wink, wink, gets in your way to save your life. So thank you for saying that. And I love that thought. Not that my life would have been gone, but the caterpillar saved the day. Okay, so getting back to golden blood. Golden blood is the rarest form of blood in the world. It has its name because when removed from the body, it appears to be a very light golden color. It is extremely rare. There's only a handful of documented cases of golden blood, and to my recollection, they were all what we would term indigenous people. Now, I've known that, and I've thought about what is the implications of that when it comes to, like, for example, we spoke about how science has given us the understanding that the Rh negative factor in all of our bloods, everybody has an Rh negative factor, regardless if it's their dominant type. Right? You may be like B+, though you still have Rh negative in your blood factors. That is known as extraterrestrial. It is not of this earth realm. And when I think about that is, my theory is it's not necessarily that it's not from this planet. I think it has more to do with it's not from this round, right? This earth round. And do you know what I mean when I say that? Like, we've gone through earth cycles many, many times. Gibran 19 says, "This is amazing. Thanks for your research and courage to share." Oh, it's my pleasure. I appreciate that feedback. Creator 888, hey Saul. There was a delay. Okay, so Saul, Douglas Stein was just referring to, I was telling a story about a bunch of caterpillars that were all over my car, and it took me 15 minutes to pull them off. And so Douglas Stein's theory is that spirit delayed me for 15 minutes to possibly save my life, right? Spirit works in mysterious ways. So, golden blood. Now, my theory on that was that it is more of a direct connection to, at the time when I learned about it, I correlated it to Lemurian blood. Now, fast forward, the other night I watched a movie, and, you know, true to my form, I forget the freaking name of the title of the movie, but it's a movie about ancient Egypt when the gods were ruling. And if you guys know the name, Saul, you guessed the last movie I was trying to explain crudely. You might know this one. And the movie had to do with Osiris being murdered by his brother. Let's see if I'm saying this right. Murdered by his brother, and then the gods of Egypt. Yeah, good on you, Saul. The movie Gods of Egypt, okay? And in this movie, they portray the gods, which I deem as the Nephilim. The Nephilim were the giant beings that used to walk the earth, and we have skeletons of these giants. Have you guys seen these? It's incredible. They are still finding amazing, massive skeletons. So, you know, this isn't a myth. We had giants walked among us at a certain point in our history. And that's what is deemed the Nephilim in the Bible. And in this movie, they portrayed the gods, is how they're referred to, but I know that they're the Nephilim. Then they had golden blood. Literal gold was the color of their blood. And now a lot of us believe and understand that they offer remnants of facts through media, right? Through the movies, through the shows. And they morph it a bit because they never want to give you the full truth, right? Though it's a way for them to kind of like feed us little nuggets of the real truth and frame it as fiction, right? What have you. And so it made me think about, first of all, golden blood, which is truly the rarest type of blood on earth. And what if it is a descendant in some way of Nephilim bloodline, and that the Nephilim actually had golden blood as their blood? And furthermore, what if, just theory, so the Nephilim in Egypt, right? The ultimate god Ra is the sun god, okay? We all know that gold and the sun are representational, and gold has long been coveted in humanity as the rarest form of wealth, right? Still to this day, it's the gold standard. And it's a surefire way to ensure you have wealth, right? We utilize it as a building block of what we determine to be wealth. Where did that come from? Why did we choose gold? It could have been anything, right? Where does the gold actually originate from? What if, like a lot of people who believe that we are living on the backs of the dragons and the reptilians? Have you guys heard about these theories, right? Where people are looking at Google Maps and finding the incredible skeletons and outlines of massive, massive dragon serpent beings. A lot of people believe that the oceans, the salt water, it's actually the liquefaction of the bodies of these beings. A lot of people believe that some of the huge, beautiful sculptures are actually the stories of like Sodom and Gomorrah, when they turned back and they turned into pillars of salt, right? Because there was a technology that created some kind of freeze where they turned to stone. And so these big, beautiful statues or carvings are actually beings that went through that experience of the technology, and now they're like frozen in time. And so what if the golden blood, actual blood of these Nephilim, went into the earth and became what we now mine as gold? Just a theory. What do you guys think about it? That was something that dawned on me just a couple nights ago. And it makes sense, because if you look throughout history, we covet all things that come from the gods. Did you know that cows have trace minerals of gold in their urine? Just a random factoid for you. Okay. And a lot of us know that cows are considered sacred in some religions, right? So that was something fun that I've been thinking about lately. And it makes so much more sense to me with that theory of why gold would be the standard for our wealth and our barter and trade. Now, another random factoid, well, not factoid, happenstance, is I talk to you guys a lot about my conversations with my dog. Gibran says, makes perfect sense. Iron may be the blood remnants of our past. Yeah, like, how cool would it be to track what we deem as these minerals and stuff? Like, what's their origin point? I believe, and this is a widely believed metaphysical theory. Douglas Stein says gold is found in veins. In our veins? Do we have gold in our veins? You know, in that the cow theory was that these cows are eating these minerals and obtaining trace elements of it, which could be a part of it, right? So, if we look at the black goo, have any of you guys heard about this? Saul, I think you and I have talked about this before. The negative black goo is a topic that comes up in a lot of the covert handling spaces. If any of you guys have looked into any of that, right? Negative black goo is and you see it a ton in movies and shows. If you look at, Saul, help me out. What's the name? Stranger Things. Remember this show, Stranger Things? And they use a representation of the black goo a lot for the, what did they call it in the movie? The, what's the name of the negative being? Creator says, yes. They changed the name from theology. What's the name of the anti, like, the evil being in that movie? Part of me wants to say the egregor, but that's not the right word. But anyway, there's a representation of when the evil or the negativity takes over these people. There's that black goo, right? I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen this in different movies. This is a substance that a lot of people have talked about and seen in the covert spaces. And they talk about how it is a main factor used in creating super soldiers. And the black goo is what we term crude oil, which I perceive, the mind flayer, there's another word for it. They call it the demigorgon in the movie, right? But the real term is the demiurge in theology. And the demiurge is like basically the anti-creator. And it's a very ancient, I'm forgetting the name of the culture that believed in the demiurge and gave us all these stories. If you guys know what I'm trying to say right now. Yeah, in the show they call it the demigorgon, but they're actually talking about the demiurge from ancient theology. And so crude oil, what we term crude oil, in my perception, is Earth Mother's blood, okay? Another reason, like we're looking at, I'm offering you guys a theory, right? That the Nephilim actually had golden blood, and it's one reason we covet gold. Look at what we use crude oil for. Look what's happening right now. The world is literally shutting down because we don't have access to crude oil, right? This is Earth Mother's blood. And the negative black goo has been found to be terrestrial, but also extraterrestrial. Crude oil is the English term for the raw form of when you pull that oil out of the earth. And then they process it and they create what the English term petroleum. Okay, so crude oil, crude is a word that means, in this way, it means like unfiltered. Gibran 19 says, looked it up, Vecna in the show, but yeah, it seems to reference the demiurge, Vecna. I don't know that word, Vecna. I haven't heard of it. But yeah, it's they're talking about the demiurge, but they changed the name, right? Okay, so crude oil is Earth Mother's blood, but in the covert spaces, a lot of these whistleblowers talk about how there is terrestrial black goo and there's extraterrestrial black goo, which speaks to other celestial bodies, possibly planets, what have you. And we all have, a lot of us have our own ideas around, the actual layout of the Earth and what has been termed the galaxy and all that stuff. That's the name they use, the Vecna. Okay, got you. Yeah, I didn't finish that show, Stranger Things, because a lot of it really hits home for me. Sometimes there's stuff, any of you guys who have done a deep dive and understand that you've been inducted into covert spaces, sometimes a little bit of it's just too triggering and like hits close to home. So I could probably go back to it now, but a lot of it was really triggered a lot of memories, and I was like, yeah, I don't think I need to go there. But it's a great show, right? It did really well, and they're talking about actual events that happened. You never saw anything like it. Jabran says, copy that. Okay, so, and then there's also a lot of movies where their eyes go black. And that's another example of what was termed negative black goo running through their being. Creator 888 says, it was the most intense thing I ever saw. The show, Stranger Things, yeah, it's really intense. And they're pulling on real stories from that show. I bet you, I don't know, maybe you guys have seen Stranger Things and Black Mirror. I bet you there is a lot of overlap in the stories, because they're pulling on actual stories that have happened and they're offering it up as fiction. And another thing that it's doing is it's doing predictive programming as well, right? So they love to seed ideas into us so that they become a part of our consciousness, and then we help them manifest it into being. That's another big reason why we're shown a lot of these movies and then 10 years later, it's actually playing out on the world stage, right? And by watching these movies, which is a portal, unfortunately, we are contributing to manifesting them in real time. That's not necessarily going to stop me from watching, but it speaks to having intentionality about the way in which you're investing your energy. Saul says, yes, big on that. Absolutely. Okay. And so crude oil, they found that some of it is positively polarized and some of it is negatively polarized. And they have found in the covert spaces in the military and in all these programs and DARPA and you name it, they have found that they can take the negatively polarized crude oil, that's also termed negative black goo, and use and weaponize it, basically. And so it has multi-dimensional factors, and any healers or energy workers, a lot of people have seen this. Have you guys seen psychically where you're looking at somebody's field, or it could even be your own energy? Like, let's say you're doing a basic energy cleanse and you see black goo in your field. That's the negative black goo. It's highly infectious. It's common to find, so it's not something to scare you or freak out about, because what happens is it's a what's the word I'm looking for? It's like a byproduct of negative experiences. So let's say you've experienced something and you dealt with a period in your life where you had a lot of resentment and you were repulsed and, this kind of energy. I'm willing to bet if you go in and look psychically, you are going to have an infestation or did at some point of negative black goo, because they go hand in hand energetically. And we've talked about a lot on this channel how everything physical simultaneously exists in the etheric realm, but not everything etheric simultaneously exists in the physical realm. It has the potential to manifest into the physical, but there will always be an etheric representation first and simultaneously. So the black goo has a physical manifestation, which we're talking about crude oil, and also an etheric or energetic manifestation, which is what you would see in the field if you're looking at somebody psychically and they need to do some kind of cleansing and clearing. So, side note on that, if you are doing any type of energy work, or last live, I talked about the importance of doing sexual healing. A huge piece of sexual healing work is when you're clearing out this energy, you will potentially dump, and I advise you to consciously dump a ton of black goo. Get it out of your body, and it'll just spew and pour like a volcano, and just run that energy. Just purge and purge and purge and recycle it into the earth safely, because after all, it is her blood. She knows how to cleanse it. Chip Brown 19 says, yes, my love language, LOL. Yeah, dump that black goo, man, because we've all experienced it. It's a happenstance or a byproduct of negative experiences, negative emotions, situations, and it's contagious in nature. And they have found that by utilizing the black goo, they can create a super soldier, because what happened, I know super soldier is also like a crude term to use. I know that people that have gone through those programs don't like being referred to as a super soldier. So I apologize if anybody's watching this. I just don't have like the politically correct term. I feel the same way about aliens. That's like a crude term. Extraterrestrial is much more politically correct, but I digress. Sal says, I try to fast, but I get very weak and have no energy to walk going without food. Yeah, I think we have to be careful in that regard around fasting. But it is a fantastic way to cleanse and heal ourselves when we're doing it in a healthy way, right, under supervision. And I think there's a lot that goes into fasting too, around making sure that your levels, like your minerals and vitamins and everything's up to par. So they have learned that they can take this black goo, and what it does is it basically takes over your compassion and your empathy, and it morphs it into apathy and even like vengeance and aggression. Everything you could think about that they might want to use to create a super soldier, okay? And it infects them. And so that, I'm getting way off on a tangent, but we were just talking about like these minerals and these elements and what's the origin point from them. That's how I got on this topic. Saul says, that is not an easy job right now to cleanse and clear and purge. No, it's not easy, Saul. It sucks, man. I tell you what, it's a full-time job. And the more I personally dive into health and understanding of what's going on and the toxins and the poisons and blah, 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 it's overwhelming. There's so much. It's incredible. And just to have basic maintenance at this point, there is so many things to do. I mean, I am just barely, I might know more than some, but I'm nowhere near what could be happening. And currently, you know, I'm only taking, when it comes to like supplementing, out of like, let's see, how many things am I taking? I take probably like almost 10 things, and only one of those, well, maybe a couple of them are like vitamin mineral, but I'm not even using them to up my levels necessarily. I'm using them because they're a clearing agent. And that's just like trying to hold, yeah, I take chlorella. What I take right now, I'll tell you guys what I take. Right now I'm on iodine, selenium, chlorophyll, not chlorella, pardon me. Yeah, I take black seed oil that also has oregano oil in it. I take ivermectin. I take fenbendazole. I just purchased a parasite cleanser that is a combo of pumpkin seed, clove, wormwood, and I know I'm forgetting one more, the bark. The three that are like great for parasite cleansing. I do baking soda every morning. I was doing food grade hydrogen peroxide. That one gets really intense for me. I'm really trying to get through a 2-month. I don't know if you guys know anything about that. That's incredible, but it's really intense. You have to know about it. You have to have food grade. You have to be educated. Anyway, and all of those are just like cleansing maintenance. I try to do the steam room every day, you know, and that's like just to try to cleanse out what I know is coming at me on a daily. It's a lot. It's a bummer. Yeah, you do zeolite. I did that for a while. Yeah, the clays are awesome. And the bentadine clays, all of these clays are great. I was doing activated charcoal a lot too, which is a fantastic thing. I think there are certain things I hope everybody has in their household if they need them. Activated charcoal is an absolute must. If you guys don't know about it, if you have a potential poisoning and you ingest activated charcoal, it will bind to that poison to pull it out of your body safely while you're seeking professional help. And it's the same for animals. You have to learn about it. But all of these things are just basic maintenance, man. It's a lot. I get you. Sal says, I don't know what to do about parasites when I cannot stop eating because I get so weak. Well, there's a lot that you can do and still eat, Saul. You know, the big things from my experience, and you guys let me know if Helen were here, she knows so much about this as well. Cut your dairy, carbs, caffeine, and any form of bread and sugar, and then do the parasite stuff. You don't have to cut your food, Saul. Basically, go on a keto diet and then utilize the parasite stuff. And the reason I just implemented that blend of like the wormwood, the clove, and I wish I could remember right now, there's 3. But there's a handful of parasites, and Helen my client turned me on to this because I didn't know this. I thought that fenbendazole and ivermectin were good across the board for all parasites, but I recently read that they are fantastic for certain parasites, and all of us have parasites. I don't care who you are, we've all got them, okay? And if you have looked into any pathologists or even pathologist assistant, many of them will tell you that, yes, that's the one. Thank you, Douglas saying black walnut husk. Yeah, that's also in that blend. So the three are wormwood, black walnut husk, and clove. And those are the three combo that will tackle the other parasites that fenbendazole and ivermectin don't kill. And so I just read something that says that ivermectin and fenbendazole, what they'll do is they'll do a certain clearing to a certain amount, but then they'll agitate certain parasites that go deeper into your body. So it's very important to be doing those three that we just talked about: black walnut husk, clove, and wormwood. And pathologists will tell you that virtually every virus and disease that they have seen is actually a parasitic infection in that area of the body, okay? And that's incredible. That's incredible. So cancers, all sorts of, I mean, you name it. It's a parasitic overwhelm in that localized area of the body. So parasite cleansing is a huge must, and it takes time. Right? It takes time and it takes dedication, because we have to cut these things. You have to cut sugar because it feeds on sugar. You got to cut the starchy carbs because it feeds on starchy carbs, you know? And then like a lot of people start purging the biofilm and they think that's the parasites, but it's not, because it looks like a parasite. It's like a casing. And I didn't know a lot, I still don't know a lot about biofilm, but I had an experience with a friend. I think I told you guys, I had a friend, I haven't talked to him in a while, but he unfortunately was riddled with, I keep losing the freaking name, what they've termed, which is the overpopulation of nanotechnology in the body. It's a really, really sad experience. And he kept getting gaslit by these doctors and naturopaths. He was in Canada. And Canada has a really interesting thing going on with naturopaths that also do like a gaslighting thing, is how a lot of doctors will do in the US when you start to get on these kicks where you know better, right? But they don't want to believe it or are not supposed to. And he would send in these samples and they would test them and they'd tell him they're not parasites. And he's like, what do you mean? Look at them. And I realized years later when I learned about biofilm that they were probably biofilm and not parasites, but they weren't explaining it to him to help him understand. Saul says, can you share some of the products in an email? Yeah, will you email me and remind me and I'll send it your way. I'll send you what I'm taking. And this is just a first shot, so do your own research, but this is the product I bought. And next time when Knee Deep is on here, she can tell you a lot about it. She was on the live yesterday, but I know she's well studied in a lot of this stuff. And it takes a lot of study, right? So I just started that. I saw your last email. Yes, Saul, thank you. And unfortunately, I just learned that, so I take stevia instead of sugars, right? That's like what I utilize. But the problem with a lot of the brands that are using a stevia supplement is they're adding in erythritol to cut it. And so I found one in the local store that uses dextrose instead of erythritol, which I did a little bit of research around. It seems to be better. But then I was like, oh, wait a minute. Is this activating glucose, which pure stevia will not, which you can get. I used to buy stevia droppers, just 100% stevia, from Sprouts, from the health food store. And right now I just haven't been going to the health food store, and so they're like these other brands of stevia. But dextrose potentially produces glucose in the body, which is not good for parasites, so I got to get on that. But, you know, there's always something, right? Okay. We're doing our best here, guys. We're doing our best. Okay, so Saul says, okay, I will send you another one where you can reply. Yes, thank you. Appreciate you. Okay, great. So if you guys have any more questions about that, let me know. I'm just going to keep on rolling with these topics so there's not a lull, but I'm always happy to talk about other things, answer any questions, or you can give me your knowledge. I love learning. I really appreciate your feedback, guys. Saul said, cut the things you said forever. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm missing some of the chat. Okay, let me go back. Saul, Douglas Stein says, yep, the attackers are running on overtime. Yes, exactly. Saul says, cut the things you said forever. No, you don't have to cut them forever or permanently. I mean, ideally, yeah, we don't need sugar. Okay, ideally, overproduction of glucose is a main factor to disease. Okay, we just don't need it. And sugar is something that, you know, they had to introduce into the population. The history of sugar is really, it's intriguing. You know, when they first started, as far as I know, and if you guys know better, let me know, because I don't have a ton of information on this, but refined sugar, okay? So there was the whole thing about cane sugar, right, which was a much more natural way, and that's a part of enslavement, right, in the cane fields and all of that. But when they started refining sugar, the population didn't want it. They didn't like it. They had to push it on us. They had to convince us to use it. And quickly, after basically marketing campaigns, people start consuming sugar, and sugar's addictive, right? And so it takes. And that's how they force sugar into our diet. It wasn't something that was natural to us or even normally consumed. I mean, if you go back and look at the history of even our fruit, like the basic fruits that we see at the grocery store, they're not natural. These have been like geoengineered, and they didn't look like that, and they weren't that sweet, okay? And so sugar is not something that you require in the way we consume it in your diet, and it leads to a ton of issues. I mean, a ton of issues. I mean, like, for example, now there's a lot of reasons for this, but there's a huge major issue going on right now with Alzheimer's and dementia, okay? And like, where did it come from? Because pre-1979, it wasn't really a thing, okay? Suddenly there's a massive boom in Alzheimer's around that time. Alzheimer's, also known as diabetes 3. Okay, so there's one big factor around sugar. Now, a lot of other things are happening with Alzheimer's, and one thing to track that's not widely known around that issue is in the 60s, there was a marketing push of products like margarine, okay? And if there was a gentleman I just watched on a video on this, and he was talking about how the brain is, I don't remember the percentage, 70 to 90% made up of mycelium. Mycelium is cholesterol, okay? Now think about, we know that a lot of things are inverted. So it's quite common if you just take basic health information, if you invert it, you might find the truth, okay? Cholesterol is bad for you, right? Don't eat butter. Remember that whole non-fat, low-fat push? They were using the seed oils, right? And then in the late 70s, the margarine in these products shifted from the seed oils they were using into a whole different form, which is basically one molecule away from plastic. And then, boom, Alzheimer's takes off. Coincidence? I mean, you know. If you look at ketogenic diets and the phenomenal, astounding healing that happens with keto diets, and mind you, I'm vegetarian, slightly vegan, so keto isn't really a possibility for me. Though, if it's up your wheelhouse, it's phenomenal because our body needs good fats. It's one of the biggest components to having a healthy brain. You know, things like this. And so all of these chemical-based crappy things that we're consuming, the white sugar, the iodized salt, the seed oils, is, you know, the big issue with that is not just the I always say it wrong. I don't remember if it's glyphosate or glyphosate. I think it's glyphosate. There's a big thing on if you've heard about the movement to stop consuming seed oils, because the glyphosate, which actually there's new research that it might even be more in the way they're processing the oils, but your body basically treats that as if you're consuming gasoline. I mean, there are like horrifying stats out there where if you consume, I think it was something, and I've said this before, something like 3 French fries. Eating that is equivalent to like smoking a handful of cigarettes. I mean, it's shocking. And if you start looking, especially as a vegetarian or a vegan, virtually all processed products are made out of seed oils. I mean, seed oil is in a lot of stuff, and it's so bad for us. And it's very difficult to get away if you're not cooking slow food, right? So there's just so much. It's overwhelming, guys, but you know, we got to do what we can do to help ourselves. So I just try to learn little bits at a time. Saul says, the last thing I ate was French fries. Yeah, man, I mean, we all do it. Last weekend, I went out and bought some chips, and I'm like, great, here we go, because all chips are in seed oils, right? And like, I got some tortilla chips, but I knew what I was doing. But you can find, you guys give me the name of the, what's the name of the substance that they originally used to fry fries in, French fries in? It's beef tallow. Sal's eating nachos right now. Yeah, nachos are awesome. Beef tallow, which McDonald's used to use beef tallow to fry their French fries in. I think you can still find it some places, but that's a way better option if you can find it, and apparently way more tasty. You know, I'm a vegetarian. I probably had beef tallow unbeknownst to myself years ago, but I wouldn't know. You can find even beef tallow in a lot of like face products, right? That's another thing. But you know, pick your poison, right? There's something horrible in a lot of things, so you know, you can't be too hard on yourself about all this stuff, right? But we try to do our best. I mean, at least we're efforting, you know. Another thing that was like a little overwhelming for me recently that I learned is that they advise that we consume a variety of at least 30 vegetables per week. Okay? Now, if you're going somewhere like salad to go or something, that's totally doable in one meal. Right? If you're like gonna go to Whole Foods and you got the salad bar, great, bam, there's your 30, awesome. But for most people, that's a really tough order. I mean, 30 vegetables, that's a lot of variety. And a lot of us go for convenient food, or we're eating the same thing over and over. And so, you know, I just started sprouting. If you guys don't do that, that's sprouts are microgreens. They're quite expensive if you go to purchase them at the store. And they're so freaking easy to do on your own, guys. And they are like a super food to eat. I mean, they have so much in them in regard to vitamin and mineral. And they're really, really easy to make. And you can make a lot from a small batch. So that's something to look into. It's also, if you're looking on a side business, microgreens, you can make a lot of money selling microgreens at like farmers markets and stuff. And it's a very cheap setup to start off. I bet the most expensive part of that would be like the marketing, right? And the packaging and all of that. But you know, farmers markets, you can go pretty basic and even just like paper bags. But I saw a thing on a couple that started selling microgreens, and they turned a whole half of their house into just you know, like a grow room of microgreens, and they sell to all these grocery stores. They're making, you know, 100 to 200,000 a year on microgreens as a side project, which is awesome, and they're so good for you. Specifically, broccoli microgreens are really great for chelation and clearing out a lot of these things that we're talking about, these poisons. So that's exciting. I'm on day 4, I think, of sprouting my first microgreens. And all I did is I bought a bag of organic broccoli microgreens. And then I purchased a couple mason jars with the mesh lids and 2 stands so they angle. And all you do is you soak 2 tablespoons of these microgreen seeds in water in the mason jar overnight. And then you rinse them out, you tilt them, and you rinse them twice a day. And after like 8 days, you've got a bunch of microgreens. Super cheap, really affordable, really, really good for you. And you can even put them in smoothies. They're so mild in taste that you don't have to consume them as like the whole food in salads or something. You could shift them into a sweet-based thing. If you do smoothies, just throw them in there. It's awesome. So that's something I'm trying right now. Okay, so let's see. Unless you guys want me to continue on that vein, Saul says, thank you for being here. Aw, thank you, Saul. I love hanging out with you guys. I love chatting with you guys. I just really, really enjoy community, and I like being able to talk about a bunch of random topics, and you guys are so chill and it's relaxed and casual. I'm very, very grateful for this space. So thank you for offering me your time. I value your time. Time is very precious. I think it's one of the most precious commodities in existence. And so I really appreciate yours. Thank you for being with me. This really feeds my soul to be here with you guys. I really, really value it. So thank you so much. Okay, so how many of you guys experience when you go to sleep, you're going somewhere that you know is not your organic dream space? This is something that I have been grappling with for years and years and years. And Spirit is constantly telling me, take care of your dream space. And I know there's something that keeps diverting me from focusing in on practicing lucid dreaming and out-of-body experiences, because that doesn't come naturally to me anymore. It probably did as a child, but there are ways in which we can relearn that practice, for anything. You can develop a skill set. Saul says, I love your presence. Thank you, Saul. I appreciate you. And thank you for being with me over the years, Saul. I know that you've been there through and through, and a lot of you guys have been with me through the years, and I really value that. Thank you so much. I wouldn't be here without you. And I know that when it comes to dream space, a big part of it, right, is around utilizing devices at night. Especially, we've been talking about the really odd shift in what's going on with the way the phone is siphoning our consciousness and becoming a lot more addictive. I'm also feeling that in TV. Have you guys experienced that? That there's a very different frequency happening as I'm watching shows, and the way it's pulling us in. And now that I'm thinking about it, I'm willing to bet it has a lot to do with the body internet. I've talked about this a little bit. If you guys have not seen Sabrina Wallace's work, she is a wonderful, wonderful source to learn about the body internet. She's a fantastic whistleblower that has all of the facts, the data, the information. She was there on the front line as they were developing some of this technology, unbeknownst to her what they were doing when she figured it out. She's also been a part of the covert handling space her whole life. She was raised in that environment. And it's very, very important to learn about, you guys. But essentially, the body internet, for anybody who doesn't know what I'm talking about, is the powers of be, I just say, right? I generally term them the controllers, which is a huge umbrella statement from anywhere from BlackRock, Oracle to the Masonic Freemasons, okay? So that's my big term for all of them, okay? So the controllers have created what's called the body internet, and they're using our electromagnetic field, our biofield, which is an organ of our body. In spirituality, we call it the aura, but it's our biology, okay? To send packets of information through us using our body as a node, to where essentially they're running the internet through our bodies, and using certain technologies such as the wearables. So I don't know if you guys have noticed how your phone have all of these health tracking data points, right? Turn all of those off, please. Don't let any sensors on your phone. Sorry if you guys are into it, but Fitbits, any of these wearable devices that are tracking any of your body information is feeding the body internet and how they're learning about and utilizing our body so they can send the internet and the Wi-Fi through. Saul says, I came back. Well, I'm glad I saw one of your last streams since then. Yes, I'm so glad you caught that too. Douglestein says, I feel like I want to sleep in a Faraday cage. Yeah, Douglestein, I'm trying to sleep in a Faraday cage, and they're not the most affordable. But what I just saw the other day, and I'll probably try it, you can get like those 5-gallon tubs of paint, of Faraday paint. Unfortunately, they're usually black, right? So that tub would probably cost about $200, $250, which is a lot cheaper than a proper Faraday cage, right? Because I've been looking at like Faraday, what do they call them? Nets. And good ones, top rated ones are, like for a queen size bed, they're anywhere from $1,200 up to $2,000. But you can get like a mosquito net and use the Faraday paint and sponge it or dip it, let it dry, do several layers of it to do a makeshift Faraday cage. I unplug my Wi-Fi every night. Very, very important. Turn off your devices. I don't only turn off my phone, I put it in a Faraday case. And I sleep with a silver fabric, a Faraday fabric under my head. I also just bought like a Faraday, what do they call it? I had it right here. Like not a do-rag, but you know what I'm talking about. Like black people use them a lot when they're resetting their hair. You've got the, I forget the word for it. Anyway, it's one of the little head pieces, but it's really like tight right here, and like I can only wear it with myself, right? Because I look ridiculous. So it's too tight for me, but it grounds. It's actually got a grounding cord on it, so I kind of just like sleep on it. Douglas says, yep, I have copper sheets. Yeah, copper is awesome. I love it. All the things, but it's not. And I also have 2 beanies that I had bought that are Faraday beanies. And I was really, really hoping that would stop the dream time space where I'm being pulled into the sim, but it doesn't. Which is such a bummer because it tells me it's beyond probably Faraday, at least for me at this point. We'll see. At a certain point when I have the expendable income, I absolutely will be buying a Faraday cage to sleep in. And I don't know if you guys have seen, but they also have window film that you can get that also blocks RF and EMF. And so you apply them how you would apply wallpaper. And it can also be like anti-glare or anti-heat, so it's helpful in that way. Those are usually like $125-ish per window, so it's not cheap either, but that's also a great way to assist and protect your house. But a major factor, which is quite difficult to get away from and a little bit overwhelming to learn about, is LED lights. So I don't know if you guys know anything about this, but LED technology is not just lighting. They are internet nodes. And the way the technology works in LEDs is that if you have any LEDs in the house, it's working as internet, okay? And utilizing you as a node. And the problem with this is if let's say, and you have to do this slowly because it's difficult to find incandescent lights. You can still totally find them, okay? But incandescent lighting is becoming more and more difficult to access. And specifically with the different types of light styles. So for example, like, you know, there's a lot of, like in the kitchen, they have, what are they called? The way they have those spotlights, that different style of bulb. It's a little bit more difficult to find those incandescent. But the issue with LED, which is everywhere, even in like a lot of the appliances, so you really, in a way, you can't even get rid of it. But if you change out, let's say you change out LEDs in one room, but you have LEDs in another room, the information packet will jump to the next LED in line. So even if you fix this one room here, it's still working to access the next LED. And LEDs are a huge way in which they're accessing our fields. Saul says, I sleep with Wi-Fi and phone. Yeah, cut that one immediately. Because also thinking about the Wi-Fi routers, that radiation is highly inflammatory. And Sabrina Wallace talks about one reason why there's a huge uptick in inflammation in the body in the last, you know, like 10 to 20 years. And like fibromyalgia, which is like basically just a word that means mysterious inflammation. You know, like they just give it this name because they don't really know what it is. Well, from her perspective, it's because they're using us as Wi-Fi routers. That's a ton of radiation and it's inflaming our bodies. And so a very simple thing to do is turn off your Wi-Fi, your router at nighttime, so you're not taking on that extra radiation. And then of course hardwire if you can. That one's not really possible for me because there's multiple devices in the house, and you know, you can't run, well, maybe you could, but I don't know how to run like 20 lines. It's a whole thing. Okay. Sal says, I am bombarded with noise and low energies from my surroundings constantly, so while I sleep I have to put some music or meditation to help me. Yeah, but you don't have to use your phone, Sal. You can get all sorts of things that will play music. I mean, you can, super on the cheap, you can get like plug-in or battery operated devices that play ambient music. I mean, that one's pretty easy. And I get what you're saying because I did that for a long time. I tried to trick myself that it was okay to just put it on airplane mode because I wanted to listen to it. Ironic, right? I put my phone on airplane mode so I can sleep to solfeggio frequencies at night. like it's good to sleep with frequencies when I still have my phone going. I don't know about that. Douglas Stein says, incandescent light bulbs are effectively banned from manufacture and sale in the U.S. as of August 1, 2023. Yeah, you can still find them though. I'm going to have to make a list, guys, of these websites. I'm trying to think of the name of this really cool website, Douglas Stein, that I found. I think they're based out of Sweden, that has all of these products that are like what we're talking about with the Faraday cage, and they sell saunas and all sorts of awesome stuff. Like this website, I'm like a kid in a candy store. They've even got this device that you put in water that immediately clears out all pesticides on your food. When you're like, you know, if you put any of your produce in a bowl of water and put this device in it, and it cleans them immediately. There is a website, the USA is in the name, where it's only incandescent light bulbs. And it's prolific. So like you have to know, I don't know what to call it, like maybe the manufacturer number of the bulb you want, but they are out there. They're not the easiest to find, and you have to take care because often it'll say incandescent LED, which you don't want. You don't want an LED acting with the light emissions. I might be saying this wrong, but like as an incandescent style, you want incandescent. It's a lot, you know, and then, you know, the whole thing about, I don't know, have you guys seen the technology of the smoke detectors? I mean, it goes on and on and on. Okay. You know, and that started, after 9/11, and they breached, when they breached all of our privacy, did you notice the way how remember the old smoke detectors, at least in the US, that were super basic, right? And if you're lucky, you can still find them at like general stores or something where it's just super basic. and you put your batteries in them. And then they updated all of the smoke detectors, and they banned the old ones because there's a new technology in the new smoke detectors that, again, read the environment. I mean, and I have a graph somewhere of what that technology is called and how it works and the way in which the satellites and stuff access the smoke detectors. But, I mean, I tell you what, you guys, they really, they've got their hands into everything. I mean, it's incredible. Another one, if you don't know about, please stop handling receipts. Receipts have the thermal paper used with receipts that print out at the grocery store. It is highly toxic, highly toxic, and it absorbs into your skin really quickly, and especially if you have some kind of emulsifier or lotion on, or even like if you use, what's it called? The sanitizing, hand sanitizer, whatever, that like effectively multiplies the way in which you absorb it. But receipts are really toxic. So if you can, by all means, stop touching receipts. That's a big one that a lot of people don't know about, and I was horrified when I learned about that one. Yeah, second time I heard that about receipts today, really. And it worries me. If you like, when I go to the grocery store, they're young kids at the checkout counter touching receipts all day long, and these kids are still developing their hormones, and it's highly bombarding to the hormones. I mean, it's horrible. So that's, if you need to take a receipt, Saul, I'm super awkward with it. Nobody knows what I'm doing, but I'll be like, they're gonna hand me a receipt, and I'll be like, either like put it in the bag, or like if I got a sleeve, I'll like grab it like that. And they're looking at me like I'm nuts, If I can refuse a receipt, I will. But if you need to take a receipt, I was just thinking about this yesterday. Like, what I should do actually is I should like put a little receipt bag. It's harder for men because you guys don't carry purses. Maybe you could put it in your wallet, but like, I should have a receipt bag that I can open up to them and have them stuff it in if I need it or something. Like, super weird. Like, bust out tweezers. Take the receipt from them. Oh my God. As if it's some kind of like, toxic thing, Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, you got to figure something out, right? Because the thermal paper is really bad. And I forget what it is. It's something like BPD. Douglas-Stein, do you remember the acronym for the toxin? I don't think it's BPA. I think it's BPD or something like that. And it is a horrible, it's like a neuroreceptor blocker. I mean, it's really toxic, really toxic. And I think about that. Like, I was in service industry for, God, like 20 years, constantly touching thermal paper and receipts. Blech. So bad. Saul says, Douglas-Stein says BPA. I think it was more than BPA also, though. I think there's another one. It's BP something. But anyway, we get the point, right? Saul says, do you make a difference between real people and non-real people, spirited or not soul or no soul? What do you mean, do I make a difference, Saul? Will you elaborate on what you're talking? I know what you mean. And, like what you're saying, non-spirited, also referred to as NPCs. Saul says, if these kids are not real beings and they touch the receipts, am I concerned? Oh, well, first of all, I don't have currently, or nor have I been efforting, if I could do it, I don't currently, off the cuff, look at somebody and know immediately if they're what we would term NPC or non-spirited or not. And I think we have to be really careful with that one, because that gets thrown around a lot. And I know that and I absolutely believe in that. Yes, I do truly perceive that there's more not than are. Though I think it's easy to overgeneralize that, just because maybe somebody is what we would call like not conscious or awake, right? Or negative or what have you. Though, no, in theory, if I wouldn't be concerned about that for, well, I guess I shouldn't say that, because, an NPC doesn't necessarily know they're an NPC, and whether or not you have a soul, what we're talking about right now with these toxins has more to do with our biology. This is the health of this avatar, right? Not necessarily something that's going to affect your soul or your spirit. So I think maybe by me wanting to say I wouldn't care about an NPC is a bit biased because they still have a body, right? They still have a right to own and use that body. It just might be a body that isn't animated with the essence that we have, right? Saul says, that's why I asked, because you said that. I am not black and white. Yeah, no, what I mean I'm not saying that they don't have a spirit. It's just a lot of these young kids are working at the stores where they're using this. And yeah, I have to think about that. A part of me is a little, I don't want to be prejudiced to their biology. Yusal says, I am more for there is a million types of creatures and species. Yeah, I mean, asked me these things like 5 years ago, and I was such on my egotistical spiritual high horse that I would be really black and white, and I would have been like very, this is what I think, and this is the truth, and it's this way or that way, and but the reality is that it could be our truth, but it's still just our belief systems, and there's everything in between, and to each their own kind of thing, right? And ultimately, what if focusing on, because there was this huge push, I remember, a huge focus in the spiritual community on NPCs. And we have to be careful around psyops. We talked about psyops the other day, right? And like, for example, the New Age movement, huge psyop, in my opinion. New Age movement is total BS, okay? I fell for it for over a decade. And it is a fantastic psyop to get a gullible populace, sorry if you're a New Ager, but this is my perspective, a gullible populace to sway in a very specific way that is really a pseudo-religion in the name of non-religion. Very specific belief systems, structured just like religion, believing in things that from the outside can seem delusional, right? And we all know that as metaphysical, spiritual students, that it's very easy for other people on the outside looking in to just perceive us as delusional, right? Or out of sorts or whatever, because of the nature of it not being fact-based. The paranormal or parapsychology, by nature, it's not, as easily provable as everything else, hence the essence of it and why I love it. Though these kind of things can be psyops that take us down the wrong vein and start turning us against each other, which is a really huge issue we talked about the other day. More in politics, we were referring to it, right? Douglas Stein, you and I were kind of chatting a little bit on that, on the diplomats and Republicans, which these are all, in my take, are just agendas to polarize us against each other. And that's another way in which I think about the whole NPC push, because it's not that they're consciously an NPC, first of all, and that doesn't change the right for them to be able to exist, okay? They're more susceptible to being taken over, and, maybe they exist for a specific agenda, though nevertheless they still exist. And it in my take, when an NPC wakes up to the fact that they're an NPC, they're distraught because they're still consciousness, they're still a being, and that wouldn't necessarily be their choice, right? And that's very disturbing. And so I have compassion for that. Saul says, Dugelstein says, I meet non-activated, yeah, that's a good term, individuals who become active when interacted with by an activated person. Absolutely. And that's another reason to take care on that black or white thinking. And we polarize a lot of things. I mean, this doesn't have to be just spirituality, but that's something that's happened forever. I mean, that's what racism is. That's what sexism is. That's what all of these things are, just polarizing us against one another so that we forget or lose the understanding that we are all one in essence. And yeah, it's a wonderful experience to help, for lack of a better term, wake somebody up. And it is easy to label somebody as an NPC when they're just not consciously awake. Now, mind you, I definitely have met what we term non-spirited or NPCs, demons incarnate, and everything in between. It's all there, like reptilian for me, that's all happening. But these days I'm not so quick to label, because I think another thing is we don't understand fully how a lot of it can be happening at once with individuals, and there's a lot of these gray areas, and a lot of this is intentionally kept as a mystery to us. For example, I just watched a video. I thought it was an interesting idea where this girl was talking about how clones aren't what we think they are. Now, I don't fully agree with her, because she was saying, from the general populace that has information on clones, the idea is that a clone is an actual biological vessel created and consciousness put into it. And I do believe that exists. And so she's saying that's not what it is, it's these other things. And I think it's all of them. And so her thought was they have many ways in which they clone. One is actual organic birth, where they're seeding the consciousness in, Another is like a walk-in, okay? Another is where they let the body die, and within those 4 seconds where the soul exits, they insert another one. So there's these different ways, right? And another one would be like ritualistic, where you're opening yourself up to an entity. And so we take an idea of something and stamp it as one specific way in which it's happening, when that's just a word or a term that could be labeling a process that has many different ways in which it's happening. Saul says, I have information that I have many clones on Mars. Could be. I mean, I wish I knew. Have you guys seen, there's a guy on, but now with active memory. There is a really cool channel on TikTok, and this guy's work is really cool. I love his freaking work. What he's done is he's taken a lot of famous people, okay, and gone back throughout, and we've seen this a lot of us here, where you can put 2 different people, and obviously we're going to be looking at people that are in the media, that we see them and we recognize them, and they'll take 2, for example, 2 different actors, sometimes 3, and you can put half of one's face next to the other half of the other, and they're symmetrically perfect. I mean, it's the same face, right? And so what he does is not only that, but he goes back through history in the ages, and he finds these matching faces, and it's super freaking cool. And another thing that he's done is, beyond that, he looks at like husband and wife throughout the ages, and it's common that they've been, however you want to say it, regenerated in this life, whatever. I mean, I think for me, they go through an organic birthing process, but it's an interesting recycling of the DNA and the genetic matter. And you can take this famous person as a man and his wife, or famous wife, and then her husband, and go back through the ages, and he finds another famous couple and puts the same half faces, and they're the same beings. It's incredible work. And his theory is that they're all the fallen, which I don't necessarily agree with. I don't think that they're only recycling the genetics and the DNA of the fallen beings. I think there's a lot more going on with that, but it's really, really intriguing. And it's super freaking common. I mean, at this point, it's kind of like a joke. You can take, at any given time, there's some like, and they're usually all around the same age. You can take, I can think of, I see their faces, I can't grab their names, but like 3 or 4 currently popular female actresses, and they all get mistaken for each other constantly. You know, I mean, like, I get doppelganger all the time. So that's an interesting thing as well. But when I first saw this years ago, this came up around more about the technology where certain people, like, you know, a lot of what we would term a superstar or higher ups or whatever, they have access to time travel. And that was, which I do believe is true. And that was the going theory on finding, like, the example I'm thinking about was Matthew McConaughey. There is a picture, a black and white photo of somebody who existed way back. He was a soldier, and it was like, it would have been 1 or 2 lifetimes previous in the timeline of this real photo, and it's the guy is identical to Matthew McConaughey. And so that was used as like proof that they're time traveling. But now I'm like, well, even though I totally know that time traveling exists, I see it more as, it could be that, but that takes a long time to get yourself injected into a timeline where you're photographed as a soldier, right? Which also I think is happening simultaneously. We see a lot of shows on that. But in addition to that, recycling the genetics, right? Because of their bloodline, okay? And one example this guy uses in his research is he takes like the top athletes, okay? And all of these top athletes are matching very well-known figures in history. For example, the last one I just saw, I think it was, I want to say it right, Epstein. He placed right next to Jefferson, the president. And then he took Epstein's, I don't know if it was his wife or his female partner, and placed her next to the president's wife. And they're the same. I mean, it's incredible. Like, the work is just phenomenal. It's really, really cool. It's so cool what people are researching and revealing and coming up with. It's awesome. I just love it. I mean, there's so much like that. Yeah, so, you know, there's a lot of these things, and it's easy to, you know, for people to dismiss what we're talking about and gaslight, and you start talking about these things, and then suddenly you're dealing with handling and gang stalking and blah, blah, blah. It goes on and on forever, and I totally get that. I've had that experience plenty, you know. It's interesting, the chat just disconnected. Wonder why. You know, it loves to do this on these kind of moments. I had an experience one time. I was teaching a course on Zoom, and Zoom is a, you know, Chinese-owned company. And I started talking about Nazi Germany. And as soon as I talked this, you know, well, there is a tiny delay in order for them to catch it. But as soon as I started talking about it, the Zoom kind of slowed and glitched a little bit. And it just seemed as if it lost a second before, you know, how when Zoom goes out and comes back on. Well, when I go back to the recording, it had deleted out the whole section of what I was talking about, right? So that I'm not surprised by this. But anyway, so that's an interesting topic on that note. Okay, guys. Well, I'm sorry the chat disconnected, and I've been yabbering on here for quite a while anyway. So I should probably wrap it up for today. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you guys. I will be back next Wednesday and Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm always open for questions. If you guys want me to read your energy, if you have anything going on for you, you want to bring it to the table, you are welcome to share that. We're very open to that in the community. And if you guys have any, like I know Saul, you're going to email me because you want to know about some of the products we were talking about. I'm always open to any of that, guys. And I'll try to get better about documenting these things so that I have this info to offer you. So have a wonderful night. I hope you guys had a fantastic full moon, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.